Hello everybody and welcome back to another Path of Exile 1 video. Today we're going to be doing a guide on how to get 40 out of 40 challenges in the Secrets of the Atlas expansion or the 3.26 Mercenaries League. For those of you guys that don't know, Path of Exile 1 always releases a set of challenges whenever they release a new league. Now if you're wondering why would I want to do these challenges, well that's because you get some exclusive microtransactions for doing so. This time around we have the Watcher's Wrath armor set. You're going to be getting the boots at 12, the gloves at 20, the body armor at 28, and the hat at 36 out of 40 challenges complete. And for reaching the full 40 challenges, you're going to get a totem pole trophy that I'm going to show to you in just a second. But first, let's put on the armor set and show you what that looks like. We'll start with the body armor, and then we will put on the gloves and boots as well. And then we're going to put on the hat last because that one works a little bit differently. So you'll see here that the microtransaction has tiers. Tier 1 is the armor set without the glow. And then if you change it to tier 2, it's going to have the glow on it. And that looks pretty cool. All right, I'm going to rotate around, show you this armor set. Very nice. And then the hat is going to have 4 tiers. All right, tier 1 and 2 is going to change the way the helmet looks. Tier 1 is a hood, and tier 2 is a full-blown helmet. All right, and then tier 3 and tier 4 is going to be the exact same thing you just saw. It's just going to have the glow added onto it, okay? So tier 3 is the hood with the glow. Tier 4 is the helmet with the glow. Now that we can see the armor in action, let me take you to my hideout, and then I can show you what the totem pole looks like. Alright, so to my right is the totem pole for the Mercenaries League. You'll see here that it has little pieces that kind of stack on top of each other. You're getting these pieces as you progress your way through the challenge list, and for finishing all 40 challenges, you get this ornamental piece on top. That's the little bird-looking thing, and it looks pretty cool. Now, getting this full totem pole does require 40 out of 40 challenges complete. That is a lot harder than doing 36 for the armor set, because the last 4 challenges are typically some of the grindiest, or they take the longest, or they require a really good build and a lot of skill to do. Luckily for you, I am here to help, and also I have some good news. The challenge list this time is a lot more easier than any of the challenge lists we've had in the past. I managed to finish this in roughly 2 weeks, I think a little bit less. I did go out of my way to do the last 4 challenges, but they were not as complicated or difficult as they were in the previous leagues. That means if you're a casual or new player checking out Path of Exile 1, you have a very good chance of finishing 36 out of the 40 challenges. And also, for those Path of Exile 2 players that are playing PoE 1, I fully expect GGG to port these microtransactions into PoE 2 at a later date, so if you want to look cool and show off to your friends with a Path of Exile 1 exclusive microtransaction, then this is a good chance to do just that. Alright, with the showcase out of the way, the rest of this video is going to be walking you through each of these 40 challenges. Some of them are going to be mind-numbingly simple, like finish the campaign, and others are going to take a little bit of strategy to do efficiently. Things like cross-contamination is going to have you fighting multiple league mechanics at once, requiring them to overlap to get the challenge complete. And then of course we're going to have our crazy things like grinding your goals, which are going to take you several days to grind out. But with that said, let's get into the guide portion of this video. Make sure to use the timestamps in the description if you are trying to complete a specific challenge. Alright, first up we have Beginner's Basics, which as it sounds is very basic. You're going to use an Orb of Alteration, use this on any magic item to reroll the stats. Then we're going to allocate a passive mastery, so you're going to click on this little button on any of the passive clusters you have, and you're going to allocate yourself one of the masteries. Then we need to equip a magic utility flask. Alright, I already have 4 equipped, but here is me equipping one just for the footage. And then lastly, we need to use the crafting bench. So go to your crafting bench, put an item in there, and then put any one of these modifiers on it, and that will have you finish the challenge. The next challenge is Merciful Mercenaries. This has us interacting with the mercenaries for the Mercenaries League mechanic. We need to take an item, hire a mercenary, and exile a mercenary. Now you can't do this all at once, but the mercenaries are in every map in the endgame and during the campaign, so at some point or another you're going to be able to finish this challenge. Right, the hire button is up here, the take item button or the pouch is over here, and the exile button is over here. If you hold down control, you can click the interface instead of pressing the button, and this is going to make some of the mercenary challenges a lot easier. Next up, we have Peddler's Produce number 1. For this challenge, you're going to need 3 life or mana flasks of the same kind, a pair of shoes, a quicksilver flask, an orb of augmentation, an iron ring, a gem of any color, and you're going to need 4 of the same items with differing rarities. So here I have a normal simple robe, a magic simple robe, a rare simple robe, and a unique simple robe. Go to any vendor and click sell items and place all of the items in. You're going to get your upgraded flask, you're going to get a pair of movement speed boots, you're going to get a resistance ring, and then you're going to get 5 orbs of chances for putting 4 of the same items with differing rarities. Next, we have a couple of challenges related to quests and bosses in the campaign. First, we have Act Adversaries 1. This has you finishing Acts 1 through 5. Then we have Quisitive Quandaries. This has you doing a couple of optional side quests that gives you a skill point as a reward. Then we have Act Adversaries 2, where you're doing Acts 6 to 10 and killing Katava. And finally, we have Pantheon Prowess, which has you doing the minor Pantheon side quests, each of which is going to give you a Pantheon in this little interface over here, and it's also going to give you a skill point. So chances are, if you're watching this video, you already have these 4 challenges complete. This is also a good time for us to talk about Helpful Hirelings. This has you interact with the Mercenaries mechanic. Once again, you have to hire 5 mercenaries, you have to exile 5 mercenaries, take items from mercenaries 5 times, and then you need to be lucky enough to take a unique item from a mercenary. It's uncommon, but it's not exceptionally rare, so this one is not hard to do at all. Our next challenge is Atlas Augmentations. Pick any 3 of these league mechanics and you have to do the encounters a total of 30 times. I think the 3 easiest ones to do, if you don't already have this complete, is defeat 30 Harbingers, defeat 30 possessed monsters, and defeat 30 rogue exiles. To help do this a little bit faster, I recommend taking the Seance node on your Atlas passive skill tree. This makes it so that up to 5 rare monsters in your map are possessed. That node is in the very center of your tree. All of the other stuff you take doesn't matter. We're going to put in our map. We're going to put in 2 Harbinger Scarabs, and then 2 Anarchy Scarabs, and 1 Torment Scarab of Possession. Alright, the Harbinger Scarabs will add Harbinger, the Anarchy Scarab will add Rogue Exiles, and then the Torment Scarab will increase the number of monsters that are possessed. In your map device, go to the Harbinger modifier over here. This is going to add an additional 3 Harbingers to the map. So we should have 3 Harbingers from the map device, another 6 from Scarabs, and then we should have 8 Rogue Exiles from the Anarchy Scarabs, and then we should have the Torment Scarab of Possession, making it so that we find more touched monsters in the map. Let's go run this map super quick and see how it goes. Alright, so here is our first Harbinger. They are going to be blue and floaty. Right? They take a little bit of time to kill, but they should be very easy since these are not the boss Harbingers that we use in the Harbinger strategy. Alright, here's some Rogue Exiles. You'll see them randomly appear in the map. And then some of the rare monsters you encounter will also have the Tormented Spirit possessing them, so we'll be able to get that part of the challenge complete while doing this strategy. Alright, and with 3 minutes, we have finished the map. I think you need to do a total of 4 of these maps to get the challenge complete. Let's have a quick look. It should be 9 Harbingers times 4, that's 36, and then we'll have 8 Rogue Exiles times 4, that's 32, and then you should be passively farming those possessed monsters. So expect to finish Atlas Augmentations with this strategy in roughly 4 maps. Our next challenge is Mighty Mechanics. This requires you to do 5 of the following League Mechanic encounters for a total of 30 times. You can think of this as a different version of the Atlas Augmentations that we just did. So the 5 mechanics I recommend you to do is going to be Breach, Abyss, Legion, Smuggler's Caches or Heist, and Delirium. In order to set this map up, we're going to need a couple of Scarabs. We're going to need the Delirium Scarab to guarantee the Delirium Mirror. We're going to need a Legion Scarab to guarantee a Legion encounter. We're going to need a Breach Scarab to guarantee a Breach. And we're going to need the Abyss Scarab to guarantee an additional Abyss. The last Scarab slot in your map device is empty here. If you want to put in something else from the list, feel free to do so. But we're going to be using the Heist map device modifier to add 3 additional Smuggler's Cache to our map. Let's put all of these in and see what it looks like. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is enter the Delirium Mirror. Just get your first reward and then you can turn it off, otherwise it's going to be making the map a lot harder. So now I have the one showing here. I'm going to click this little fast forward button in the bottom right side of the screen, and that's going to end the Delirium mechanic. Alright, and then it looks like we found the Abyss mechanic. Run into this green dot on your minimap and then just follow the cracks around. I think since we don't have the Atlas passives for the Abyss mechanic, it should end very quickly. 1 or 2 pits is what it should do. So let's follow this around for a second. Alright, you'll know the Abyss is complete when the Abyssal Trove chest spawns, so go ahead and open it. That is your Abyss complete for the map. This led us right towards the Breach, so let's walk into the Breach hand. I believe you should get completion progress as long as you stay in the Breach while it opens and closes, so let's just sit here and do that. Then we have our Smuggler's Cache that we put in using the map device. You're going to click this and it's going to give you a heist contract. I'll leave it up to you whether you want to pick it up and interact with that component of the mechanic, but all you have to do for the challenge is open the Smuggler's Cache. Right, the only thing left to do in this map is look for the Legion, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we did find the second breach, so for some of these challenges you're not going to be using all 30 of the Scarabs for your 30 maps, since you are getting multiple breaches and multiple Smuggler's Caches. Make sure to turn that off once you have that part of the challenge complete, so you're not wasting your money. Alright, there's the second breach complete. Here is our Legion monolith. So you'll see here that I have 13 Legion encounters complete. Alright, and that should be the 5 League mechanics we are doing for the Mighty Mechanics Challenge. Once again, that's Breach, Abyss, Legion, Smuggler's Caches from Heist, and the Delirium Mirror. You're going to need to do a total of 30 maps to get this done, and remember, once you have part of the challenge complete, remove the Scarabs that you're using, and remove the Heist map device modifier so you are not spending 6 chaos per map. Next up, we have the Familiar Friends Challenge. This requires you to complete any 2 of the following Master Mission encounters in Red or T17 maps. We need to do this for a total of 30 times. I think the fastest Master Missions to run is going to be Nico and Einhar. So open up your map device, put in your Sanctified Scarab. This guarantees that you get Nico. Then put in your Bestiary Scarab. This guarantees that you get Einhar. And then we are just going to run the map and see how long that takes. Alright, and there is the Nico and Einhar missions complete, and it's brought us to the Mercenary here, and then the map boss right behind him. So all in all, it takes about a minute to do this map, depending on how fast your build is. You need to do it 30 times, so you can say maybe 30 minutes for this challenge. Next up is Combat Camaraderie. This one is very simple. Just hire a mercenary, have them alive and with you in your maps. I think my mercenary is over here. Valessa. Invite. This is a kineticist. She gives me haste. She also has some quality of life like Azaneth's Gentle Touch and Comb's Binding and Perquill's Toe. Alright, simply do maps with your mercenary active and you should get this challenge complete. Just remember to run higher than eye level 75 maps. So I think that is the red maps for this challenge. While we're here, it's also a good time for me to talk about the Beloved Benches Challenge. This one I don't actually have any footage for, but as you are doing your Atlas progression and completing your maps, some of these maps are going to have a crafting recipe for you to unlock at the end. Simply complete all of your maps and keep an eye out for these crafting bench recipes, and you will get this challenge complete. Our next challenge is Vitriolic Vaal. This requires us to fight Uber Etziri in the Alluring Abyss. So in order to do this challenge, we need to get one of each mortal fragments. You'll see here that these cost about 9 to 8 chaos each. One of the pieces, though, is very expensive. I'm not sure why. That one is upwards of 30 to 40 chaos. Now, before doing this challenge, I recommend that you have a good build. Uber Etziri might be an old boss, but she is no joke. Some of her abilities hit extremely hard, and you're going to need Reflect Immunity to do this fight. So if you're not playing a Chaos build that does Chaos damage, or if you don't have proxies like Totems or Mines, you are going to need Elemental and Physical Reflect Immunity to kill Uber Etziri. The easiest way to do this is to use the Physical and Elemental Mastery on your passive skill tree. There's also a Soul of Yugal Minor Pantheon that gives you partial Reflect Mitigation, and there is a unique ring, I believe it is called Sibyl's Lament, that is going to give you Reflect Mitigation depending on what slot you equip this ring on. Our next challenge is Memorable Missions. This requires you to do Kirek missions in your map device. So go to your map device, open up the Kirek mission option over here, and you're going to need some scouting reports. For this challenge, I recommend that you use the Explorer Scouting Report, the Otherworldly Scouting Report, and the Influenced Scouting Report, all of which can be grabbed off of the currency exchange for a couple of chaos each. Alright, we'll start with the Explorer Scouting Report first. You're going to re-roll the missions and you're going to look for some of these mission objectives that are listed in the challenge. So a lot of these you can find using the Explorer Scouting Report. I have some of them completed. I have some of them that I've just not done because I didn't need to. And then things like defeat the Breach Lord or defeat the Elder Guardian, Shaper Guardian, those you can target using otherworldly scouting reports and influenced scouting reports. Now, I do want to show you guys what that looks like, but we also managed to get a Vaal Temple map here, so I'm just gonna go run that real quick, see if we get anything. Alright, we're back after running that Vaal Temple. It had nothing interesting in it, so let's go back to re-rolling some scouting reports and see what we get. And here is our first Kirek-specific mission. You're going to see that it shows up as an implicit or enchantment on the map itself. This one has us killing Harbingers. Let's see if we can find any more. So I have one of the missions here that I think is worth running because it looks super cool. This one's going to contain a bunch of additional essences trapped in Rogue Exile, so let's go do this super quick. Alright, so we're in the Kirek Master Mission map. You'll see in the top right-hand side of my screen, we have a mission saying Slay the Imprisoned Exiles. So here is an example of the Exile with the essences trapped into them. And once you finish the mission objective, you need to kill the map boss, and that should complete the map. There you go, Memorable Missions, Slay the Imprisoned Exiles complete. So you're just going to go through each and every one of these, or 6 of them to be exact, to finish the Memorable Missions challenge. And the last thing I want to bring your attention to, guys, is when you are doing the Memorable Missions challenge, keep an eye out for areas contain Einhar. Areas can contain capturable Harvest Beasts. These Harvest Beasts are extremely valuable to other players. If you see this and you can run the map modifiers on that map, do not skip over it. You are rolling over money. So let's go run this real quick, by the way. Our next challenge is Achieve Ascension. This just requires us to do each of the labyrinths in the game. So that's going to be your normal, cruel, merciless lab, and then of course the Uber lab using the offering to the goddess. I guess if you guys want footage of this, we can go do that real quick.
Where there's a golden key, there must be a golden door. You are free.
Our next challenge is Unreal Undertakings. This is going to have us completing any of the 4 following encounters where the area level is 81 or higher. The 4 encounters I recommend you to do is going to be Breach Stones, Logbooks with 10 remnants active, Tier 4 Harvest Seeds, and the Trial Master Fight. Alright, I've gone ahead and bought myself 1 Zoth, 1 Esh, 1 Tull, and 1 Ulnatal Breachstone. Chayula is going to be the most expensive, so I do not recommend that you buy this one. Alright, the reason we've gotten 1 of each is so we can run them with Maven Influence. Only do this if your build is strong enough because it does make the fight harder. This is going to get you a few more points to spend on your Atlas tree if you haven't already done it. So this is how we'll be doing our 5 Breachstones. For your last Breachstone, you can buy another one of these that is the cheapest, or you can use the Otherworldly Scouting Report we just talked about for the previous challenge. You're going to use that on Kirek's mission, and that's going to guarantee that you get a Breachstone for you to run. When running these Breachstones, it's pretty straightforward. It's going to be an expanding breach from where you start the map. There's going to be a timer on top. You have to kill the monsters and keep up with the rate of expansion, or the breach closes and you fail the map. So if your timer is ticking down near 0, you might be in trouble, but otherwise, Breachstones are pretty easy, and they're kind of good XP as well. And there it is. The Breach Lord is dead. Looks like we got some loot here. That's pretty cool. Alright, let's head back to town. The next part of this challenge is fighting the Trial Master. For this, you're going to need an Ultimatum Scarab and an Ultimatum Scarab of Dueling. One guarantees that you have an Ultimatum encounter. The other guarantees that if you finish the encounter, it'll always lead to the unique boss, which is, of course, the Trial Master. So let's go ahead and buy a couple of these. Right, each one is around 9 chaos, and then the Ultimatum Scarab should just be a very cheap one for you to buy, maybe 1 chaos per. 4 scarabs for 1 chaos, very nice. Once you have your scarabs, pick a tier 14 or higher map that has a good layout. In this case, we'll do Glacier. You don't need to put any mods on it. We don't want to make this any harder than it needs to be. And then you're going to click Activate, and then I'll see you in map with the ultimatum encounter. Alright, so here's our ultimatum encounter. Make sure to pick options that don't brick your build. For example, if you're an armor build, don't pick the option that overwhelms physical damage reduction. That's going to make the encounter kill you, and then you're going to be down some scarabs, and you're going to feel very sad. So all we have to do here is survive for 10 rounds, and then we can fight the Trial Master at the very end. Alright, we are about to go into the final boss fight. So you'll see here it says round 10 out of 10. The next option you pick is going to teleport you into the Trial Master Arena. This is a pretty easy fight. I guess it could be hard depending on the modifiers you chose for the ultimatum. Hopefully it is not too difficult to do in a T14 map. And if you guys are struggling, I can show you a couple of Atlas passives you can take to make this fight a little bit easier.
Chaos, save me! It's finally over. And my service continues. Chaos laughs, mortal, and fortune is yours.
Alright, there's the loot we got from the fight. Oh, we got Hateforge? Is this Hateforge? It is Hateforge! Wow! Okay, that is awesome. I'm gonna put that in my stash. I don't think it's worth anything this league, but it's one of the rare drops from the ultimatum boss encounter. So with that done, do it 2 more times and you should get that part of the challenge complete. And as I mentioned, if you are having a hard time with the Trial Master or surviving the ultimatum, you can take Wellspring of Creation here. It makes it so monsters deal less damage, but they have more life. And then there is also an ultimatum specific node here, Ruinous Wager. It makes it so ultimatum monsters deal 50% less damage, but you cannot get hit as often because they will apply stacks of ruin that makes you fail the encounter. So just something to consider if you are doing the Trial Master and struggling with him. The next part of this challenge is Tier 4 Harvest Seeds. This involves fighting unique bosses in the Harvest mechanic. So for this, we are going to need ourselves a Harvest Scarab. So let's go ahead and buy one. And then we're also going to need a Harvest Scarab of the Cornucopia. Now this is a little bit more expensive than I expected, but it is what it is. Let's go ahead and buy one. And once again, we're going to pick up a tier 14 map or higher. This time you can actually put some mods onto your map. It's going to increase the amount of life force we get, which will help us recuperate the loss of buying this scarab. On that same note, let me go check Faustus to see how much Harvest Scarab of Doubling is. Maybe it might be worth using here. Okay, it's roughly 10 chaos for this Harvest Scarab. I think I'm going to buy it. It's probably going to help us recuperate the cost. So, alright, we have Harvest Scarab of Cornucopia, and Harvest Scarab of Doubling. We're going to put this onto a rare map, tier 14 or above. Alright, we've found the Sacred Grove. Let's go into it. And then we can put a portal here, just in case we die. We're going to have a look at the plots. You should have one boss of every color, as long as every color spawned. So here we have the blue tier 4 seed. Here we have the yellow tier 4 seed, and here we should have the purple tier 4 seed. So we're able to fight 3 of the 5 bosses in one map. If you're very unlucky, you might get both of the bosses to spawn in the same plot. For example, you could have gotten a tier 4 yellow and a tier 4 purple, and then you might have to choose one or the other, and you'd only get 2 out of the 5 bosses complete. So let's kill these real quick. Alright, and the harvest mechanic is complete. Let's go back to base, and then we're going to try and sell these life force and see how much money we make back. Alright, so we put in about 60 chaos worth of scarabs, and we got back 101 chaos orbs from the life force we sold. So make sure to use the harvest scarab of doubling so you get double the life force when doing this strategy, guys. That way we're not going to lose money on the scarabs. Alright, so that should cover Breachstones, Tier 4 Harvest Seeds, and the Trial Master fights. The last thing I'm going to recommend is logbooks with at least 10 remnants active. I've looked over some of these other strategies. They either take too much time or they are way too expensive with no guarantee that you'll make your money back. So if you think some of these look interesting to you and you want to check them out, by all means go ahead. But we're going to be doing a logbooks for the 4th and final encounter. First thing we need to do is buy ourselves an expedition logbook. You're going to have to go to the trade site to do this. Make sure to set item level to 81 or higher, otherwise it will not count for the challenge. So I'm going to go ahead and try to look for one that is roughly around 5 to 6 chaos. Alright, we have a seller over here. Apparently buying this is a real pain in the ass. The trade website is just a bunch of people not replying to whispers. When is it not? Alright, make sure it is eye level 81 or above. The other stuff on it doesn't matter. Thank you very much. And then we can go back to our hideout. If you want to keep this part of the challenge easy, don't roll anything onto your expedition logbook. Take it straight to Danig. This is going to be the NPC that does logbooks. And then you can go to Show Expedition Map. And then you can put this in. All right, when you put your logbook into the expedition map, you're going to see some options here. In this case, we can do Black Scythe Mercenaries or the Druids of the Broken Circle. I think the Druids is the worst one, so if you see some other options there, pick those instead. Let's go ahead and pick Battleground Graves, and then you're going to click Open Portal, and that's going to put up 6 portals to the expedition encounter. Alright, once you are in the expedition encounter, press tab and you're going to see a bunch of icons. Now this is incredibly overwhelming, especially if you don't know what you are doing. So I'm going to try to make this as simple for you as possible. And we're going to be looking for remnants. It'll show up in your mini-map as these little icons over here. It looks like a little razor blade with a bright blue center. That is the only thing you care about in this map. Ignore everything else. If you happen to see a skull, that means there is a boss fight. You might want to pick that up just for fun, but you are focusing on the remnants here because the challenge says to finish the logbook with at least 10 remnants active. So let's start putting our explosive down. Here is remnant number 1 and 2. Make sure that the modifier on it doesn't break your build. I am playing a physical build, which means I cannot run monsters are immune to physical damage, right? And then you're just going to make a chain of explosives to the remnants until you get 10. So here's number 4, here is number 5 and 6, here is 7, here is 8, here is 9, here is an immunity to physical damage. I cannot take this, so I'm going to go in the opposite direction. Right here should be 10. I'm going to get an extra couple few just to make sure I don't mess anything up. And okay. So we finished this expedition with 7 explosive left. I don't really care about min-maxing my loot. I'm just going to put the remaining explosives in this area here. Alright, and then once you have all your explosives placed, you're going to go back to the center, click detonate. And then we're going to follow the chain of explosions. And by the time we kill all the monsters, it should say logbooks with at least 10 remnants active, 2 out of 5. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, it looks like the number procced, so all I had to do was kill all of the monsters in the map, and I got the completion for the logbook. Alright, so that is how I recommend you do this challenge. If you guys don't like logbooks, by all means, try and do the other ones here. Domains of Timeless Conflict is what I would have recommended to do instead. The problem was the emblems were extremely expensive, so I think you would lose money if you were to do that. Alright, so do that for a total of 5 times and you will have Unreal Undertakings complete. Alright, our next challenge is Signature Specializations, which gets you to claim any 5 items from mercenaries of the following equipment types while they have the infamous or of infamy mercenary-specific modifier. So in order to do this challenge, we first need to find an infamous mercenary. This is just an RNG chance of finding them. You can find them in the campaign, you can find them in your maps. I think I just ran around 25 maps to find this guy over here. He actually looks super cool. That MTX set is pretty baller. I don't know if it exists in the game, but I want it. Let's talk to him and see what we have. First thing you're going to notice is that the infamous mercenaries have better skill combinations. Usually it comes with multiple auras. This guy doesn't have it, but he has a whole bunch of cool skills. But I am getting distracted. We can look at the currency pouch. That is not relevant to this challenge. What we want to look at is their item. Here you're going to hold down Alt and you're going to find their infamous modifier. So, alright, so I've looked through each and every one of these items and it does not have the infamous or of infamy modifier. The reason for that is because the amulet slot should have had it. but instead we got a unique in place of the rare amulet, so it looks like we've fallen into a little bit of bad RNG. I'm going to kill this guy for his currency pouch, and then we are going to go ahead and find another infamous mercenary. Alright, we're back with another infamous mercenary. Let's hope we get lucky and find one of the rares that have the infamous modifiers. So let's talk to him. And what is this? Dark Pact, very interesting. So once again, we're going to hover over each of the rare items and hold Alt and look for the of infamy suffix. Alright, so here it is, Loath Curtain Grained Ringmail. It has suffix modifier of infamy. Consecrated ground you create grants a certain amount of maximum chaos resistance to you and your allies. So we're going to go ahead and pick this up.
We're both beyond salvation, Exile. Insignificant.
And there it is, the item we were looking for. So we need to do this for a total of 5 item slots, so that involves finding 5 infamous mercenaries with different items. While on the topic of infamous mercenaries, we should also talk about the challenge Infamous Instigators. This involves you defeating any 15 of the infamous mercenaries in an area level 78 or higher. So if you were completing the challenge we just talked about, chances are you're going to be making a lot of progress and completing Infamous Instigators as well. Our next challenge is Divine Destiny. This is the challenge related to divination cards and related mechanics like the Nameless Seer and stacked decks. The first part of the challenge involves us opening 50 stacked decks. You can buy this off the currency exchange. One stacked deck is roughly 2 Chaos Orbs. The next one is turn in sets of divination cards with a stack size of at least 10. For this, I recommend that you buy the Fortunate Divination card. So let's get that over here. This is going to give you back 2 Divine Orbs, and it costs 34 Chaos per 1 card. I did the math. You're going to lose a little bit of money on this, but all of the other options that you have to buy are either not very liquid, so there's not a bunch of supply and demand, or they are more expensive and you lose even more money. So for this, I recommend that you spend your Chaos Orbs to buy a full stack of the Fortunate, you turn that into the Divine Orbs, you sell the Divine Orbs back into Chaos Orbs, and then you rinse and repeat, and that should get the second part of the challenge done. If buying the Fortunate cards is not feasible, then what we can do instead is run a couple of maps with these Scarabs. You're going to use Divination Scarab of Pilfering, and then you're going to use 4 Divination Scarab of the Plenty. This is going to make it so that your map drops more Divination cards. All of these Divination cards are going to get eaten and be concentrated on the boss, which is going to be harder, but he's going to duplicate all of the divination cards you found in that map. The maps I would recommend you to do if you're trying to farm the cards for this challenge is going to be Canyon. This drops the Arena Champion. That is a 10 stack card that appears quite frequently. Or you can also do Temple, which is going to have a chance to drop the Prosperity Divination card. That is also a 10 stack card, and then you also have the Innocent there, although that one might be a little bit more uncommon. Alright, so those are the maps I recommend for you to farm using these Scarabs if you want to farm out the div cards yourself. Now the last thing that we need to do is turn in a set of divination card that rewards a 2 implicit unique item. You can go into your divination stash tab, put it to full stacks, and then type in implicit, and then see if you have anything already found. I don't actually know where I got these from, I just happened to pick these up. So if you have these sets partially complete or fully complete, use this to complete the challenge. And if not, we're going to have to go find a Nameless Seer and then scry a map. So let's go do that right now. Alright, if you want to increase your odds of farming a Nameless Seer, we're going to have to set up an atlas like this that has all of the shrine nodes. So we have shrines, we have supplication, then we have Drawn to Power, and we have Syncretism, and then I think there are a couple more shrine nodes here. We don't need to take all that glitters, that doesn't really matter. The goal of stacking shrines is to get as many native monsters in the map. The shrine mechanic will spawn monsters that are actually from that map and not from a different mechanic. So in that same sense, we want to use a full set of Domination Scarabs, so you can have 4 of these. Then you're going to want Scarab of Adversaries. I think this should work. It's going to mirror a pack of monsters in the map that already exists. So this one I am just kind of going with, assuming it works. And then we're going to put our map in and make sure it's rare and has the quality on it. And then you want to use Domination on your map device as well. Alright, if you do these things, I think you should have the highest chance of spawning Reflecting Mists and Nameless Seers. Let's go find out. Alright guys, we finally got the Nameless Seer to spawn. That was a lot of maps, I think at least 30. So I'm just going to clear this area out a little, and then we can look at what he has to offer us. And there he is. This is what he looks like. He shows up on your map, and you also get a little chat thingy here that says the Nameless Seer has appeared nearby. Once again, you find this guy by killing mobs that are native to your map. So any monsters that spawn from mechanics like Breach, Abyss, Harvest, those don't count. They have to be already in the map when you load in, okay? Alright, the first thing we're going to do is scry the map. So each map has a set of divination cards. The Defiled Cathedral happens to have the Apothecary, which can be traded in for Mage Blood. That's why I hunted it down in this map. And we want to scry it onto a map that we plan to run for a farming strategy. For that is either going to be Jungle Valley for me or Glacier. I'm not sure which one I want to do yet. Alright, so I've decided to scry it onto Jungle Valley. All we have to do is click this map over here. Are you sure you want to scry this map? Divination cards in Jungle Valley map will be overridden with divination cards from Defiled Cathedral. We press OK, and you're going to get this little purple line connecting the two maps that you have done the scry on. Alright, and that should complete the Divine Destiny challenge. And once again, you can have a look on the trade site to see if you'd rather do the turn in a set of divination card for a 2 implicit unique item. Let's wrap this up by seeing what items the Seer has to offer. Yeah, all of these items are trash. We're going to take Astral Projector and call it there. Our next challenge is Peddler's Produce 2. This requires you to trade in a bunch more vendor recipes. These ones are more catered toward the end game. You have to get an Orb of Fusing, an Exalted Shard, a unique item, and an item with influence. To do this challenge, you're going to need the following items in your inventory. You're going to need the Chaos Recipe equivalent with Shaper or Elder influenced items. So here I have a helmet, a pair of gloves, a pair of boots, 2 rings, 1 amulet, 1 belt, 1 chestplate, and 1 bow, or 2 one-handed weapons, which can be traded in for an Exalted Shard. So I'm going to put that into the trade offer here, and you'll see that I get 1 Exalted Shard back. Now, I'm not sure if you can mix and match these, like maybe you can have some Shaper, some Elder. I haven't tried that yet, so I would recommend you to either get a full set of Shaper or a full set of Elder items to do this recipe. I'm not going to click accept here. I've already done this. I'm saving the set for a friend. Let's look at the other items we have here. To make a unique item, the easiest one is going to be the Shark Tooth Arrow Quiver. You're going to need a normal version of the quiver, a Rain of Arrows gem with at least 1% gem quality. You can use a Gem Cutter's Prism to do that. Then you're going to need a rare Onyx Amulet and an Orb of Chance. So if we put all of these into the trade, we will get back a unique Shark Tooth Arrow Quiver. So let's go ahead and accept that. Then to get an item back with influence, you're going to put in an item that already has an influence, and you're going to do any one of the vendor recipes that spits the item back with a guaranteed modifier. In this case, we have a 2-handed axe with the Shaper influence. I'll put in a rare belt and a blacksmith whetstone, and we're going to get the axe back. It'll retain its influence, but it will now have the serrated modifier. So let's go ahead and click accept. Alright, and this is how you get an influenced item from a vendor recipe. Lastly, we need to get Orb of Fusings. In order to do this, you just vendor any 6-link item. In this case, I have a Tabula Rasa. Alright, we're going to vendor it and get 20 Orb of Fusings back. And that is how you complete Peddler's Produce number 2. A good place to find the Shaper and Elder items is by running the Shaper Guardian or Elder Guardian maps. When you kill the boss, you're going to get a shower of influenced loot, and if your build is strong enough, you can also run the Maven Invitation for the Shaper Guardians or the Elder Guardians, and that is also going to give you a lot of influenced items. Our next challenge is Striving Settlements. This has to do with the King's March League mechanic that you unlock at the end of the campaign. You'll see Johan right before you start maps in the epilogue, and he'll take you to King's March. So here we have to do 4 of any of the following tasks. I recommend that you disenchant unique items. You can do this at Rog the Disenchanter. So here you just put in your unique item, and then you need to disenchant 30 unique items to get that challenge complete. Then I recommend that you do have at least 150k gold in your treasury at once. If you click the town map, you can put in your gold in the treasury, just get this number to 150k, and you're good to go. The next part is have at least 5,000 blue xanthemum in your King's March stockpile at once. So for this, we're going to have to go to the farming plots. You want some of them set to blue xanth. Let's see if I have one here. All right, so I have some blue xanthemum farming here. It says produced is 1,000 per hour. The number of farmers and their level will dictate how fast this generates. You just need a total of 5,000 stacked up at once, and that's not a big deal. The last part of this challenge is having at least 2,500 verisium bars in your King's March stockpile. For this, you need to do the smithing and mining sections of the town. So here is where you can set up your miners. I have all of mine set to verisium, and then if I run over to the smelters, I think I'll have the same thing going on here. So manage workers, a lot of smelters making verisium bars. Alright, and you find verisium in your maps, of course. For those of you guys that don't know, you use your gold at Rolf the Recruiter to find the workers to put into King's March. Use the reroll recruits for this challenge. You want to get as many level 4 recruits as you can. If you are min-maxing King's March to make money using the shipments, then you're going to want to reroll with high quality recruits and get a bunch of level 5 workers like I did for my farm and also my shippers. Next up is Equipped Elites. This requires you to fill all equipment slots of mercenaries with the same type of equipment with any 5 of the following equipment types. Now you can pick and choose which ones you want to do. I think Unique, Corrupted, Influenced, Crafted, and either Mirrored or Fractured is the easiest ones to do. So in order to do this challenge, I recommend that you have a mercenary that has all 3 attributes, like the Kineticist. Mercenaries have limitations on what items you can put on them, and the Kineticist, the one that uses all 3 attributes, has the most flexibility in terms of what items you can equip. So once you have the Kineticist or any other tri-attribute mercenary, all you're going to do is make a full set of gear that fits the requirements of the challenge. So here I have a wand. Alright, you can put any crafted modifier on the wand and then every other piece that you want to equip the mercenary with, and that will complete the crafted component. Alright, and then you can take those items and you can Vaal orb them, and then you can equip it back on your mercenaries once it has the corrupted tag. That will finish the corrupted portion of this challenge. Alright, then you can look in your stash tab to see if you have any unique items, and you're going to do the same thing. So for here, I can get a unique wand and then equip that to my mercenaries, and then fill up every other slot with some random uniques as well, and unique will be complete. Now the remaining 2 are the harder parts. If you've been picking up some fractured items along the way, you might have some fractured items laying around to finish that part of the challenge. I didn't, and I don't know how to force spawn them, but I do know how to target farm influenced and mirrored items, so I'm going to show you that really quick. Alright, influenced we get from running any of the maps in the influenced portion of your map tab. So we have the Elder Slayers, we have the Elder Guardians, and we have the Shaper Guardians. Alright, you don't need to match the influence. We can have an assortment of influenced items, and we put that on the mercenary, and we are good to go. Now here I have the mirrored items as well. You can buy this off of other players on the trade site, but I really dislike trading in this game, so I am going to show you a way to target farm mirrored items for this challenge. Alright, the first thing we need to do is get the Twice Tempted Atlas passive on our Atlas passive skill tree. So let's go ahead and get this. This is going to make it so your maps contain an additional strongbox. Then we're going to go to our map device. You're going to need a T16 map with a bunch of modifiers on it and some item quality as well. I'm pretty sure this affects the loot you get from strongboxes, so make sure to roll your map. And then we are going to need to have some scarabs. You want ambush scarabs. You need 3 of these. This will put strong boxes onto your map. Then we want Ambush Scarab of Discernment. This is going to make it so that the strongboxes in the area are more likely to be rare variants. And then we're going to want Ambush Scarab of Potency to increase the explicit modifiers of the strongboxes in the area. And then the last thing you want to do is use the Ambush crafting option on your map device, and we're going to open up the map. Before we step into the map, grab yourself some Orb of Transmutations, some Orb of Scourings, and a bunch of Alterations and Augmentations. And if you have them laying around, you can also get some Engineer's Orbs. That's going to improve the quality of a strongbox. Now I'll see you inside the map. I recommend you to full clear the map before engaging with any of the strongboxes. That way we're going to have a little bit more peace and quiet while rolling the strongboxes. Alright, now that the map is fully cleared, we can start rolling our strongboxes. So all you're going to do is you're going to identify the strongbox, and you're going to try an alteration spam and use your augments to get the of Calandra suffix. So let's see how long that takes for us to do. Okay, we got it on the first try. It's not usually that easy, but it's also not uncommon as well. So it should be pretty easy to do with a couple of alterations and augmentations. Once you have the of Calandra suffix, you can use your engineering orb to improve the quality of the strongbox. I believe this improves the drops from it. So let's go ahead and do it. And then we can open it and see what it drops. Alright, so I have the loot filter off, and you can see here that we are dropping mirrored items. So here is a mirrored weapon. This was a blacksmith's strongbox, so all of the items that came out of it was going to be weapons. Here is the wand for our kineticist. We have an imbued wand over here. Alright, and then we can go next for the next strongbox. And it looks like we did not get any of the jeweler ones, so that's unfortunate. So you might have to run a couple of maps like this to fill out the pieces that you are missing. Alright, there it is. There's your armor strongbox of Calandra. Let's use our engineering orbs and put some quality onto this. And then we will open it. Alright, and if I turn off my loot filter again, you'll see here that we now have mirrored armor items. If you're getting bad RNG and just not finding the strongbox or getting the items you need from the strongbox, then what you can do is go on trade and buy the mirrored accessories instead. Mirrored accessories are really easy to find because they come from reflecting mists, and people tend to put them on sale for a couple of chaos each. Our next challenge is Remarkable Realms. This will have us completing unique maps. So go to your stash tab, go to your map stash tab, and here you can look at all the unique maps you have collected. I am pretty sure that the Altered Distant Memories and the Synthesized maps count for this challenge, and if they don't, there is no shortage of unique maps for us to run. You're also going to be running some unique maps for your Atlas completion. So you should have some progress done for this challenge if you've fully completed your Atlas. We can also use singular scouting reports with Kirek missions to fish for unique maps. So we click our Kirek mission and then we use the scouting report. We're going to get at least one unique map to show up, which we can run, and that will count for the challenge. Next up, we have Sanctified Scarabs. This one's a really straightforward one. Complete maps with any 20 of the following scarab types while they are at least tier 14 and have 80% item quantity. So you're going to take your map, you're going to make sure it's tier 14 or above, you're going to chisel it, and then we're going to alch and scour it until we get a decent amount of item quantity. Now I'm pretty sure map effect modifier on your Atlas skill tree affects the quantity for this challenge. So you can see here that I have a full passive tree with all of the map effect modifier nodes. Let's go put in a Blight Scarab and see if we get the challenge to tick. So I'm just going to type in a Blight. And then if I look at the fine print, you'll see that the map now has 125 increased quantity of items. That is from our increased map effect. So let's go run the map and see if we get the challenge to complete. Alright, and you can see here in the bottom right, it says Sanctified Scarabs complete. So map effect does indeed count for this challenge. And you're just going to work your way through using any combination of these scarabs until you get the map complete. And that should be the Sanctified Scarabs challenge. Our next challenge is Glorious Gemstones. This one's a pretty fun one to do. You have to complete 3 of any of the following gem tasks. I personally think that the Corrupt a Gem to become either level 21 or 23% quality is the hardest, unless you are someone that levels gems in your alternate weapon swap and then corrupts them to sell for money. You're probably not getting this one done. So let's look at the other ones we can do instead. Use a Facetter's Lens to add experience to a gem. You can either do this using the Betrayal mechanic, or you can farm out the Facetter's Lens in the Eternal Lab. So just take any level 20 or higher gem. Let's see here, we have Intimidating Cry over here, and then you're going to put it into the Divine Font here and sacrifice it to gain a little bit of the stored experience as a lens. So let's go ahead and do that. And there it is. Alright, I have a Cleave of Rage here. I'm just going to use my Facetter's Lens onto the Cleave of Rage, and it's going to give it a little bit of XP, and that should be that portion of the challenge complete. Next is have a Socketed Skill Gem reach level 30 or 53% quality or higher. This one's really easy to do. You just need to go on the trade website and buy yourself the Pragmatism Unique Armor. This is going to give you plus 12 to level of Socketed Skill Gems. So put this on, and then you're going to put in any of your level 20 skill gems. So let me get one over here. So here we have a level 20 Ancestral Cry. We're going to put that into Pragmatism, and you're going to see that it is now level 30 on accounts of being in this chest. Alright, and that should complete this portion of the challenge. The last thing for us to do is have a total of 300% quality on all socketed gems. If you have a character in the end game, all of your gems and support should be qualityed anyways, so you need a total of 15 support or skill gems that have 20% quality, and you will get this challenge complete. This next challenge is one of my favorites, and this is Cross-Contamination. This requires a little bit of strategy to do, so we're going to need some scarabs. Let's go talk to Faustus and get them real quick. This challenge involves you combining League mechanics and doing them while they are overlapping. For example, you might have to fight a Legion General while the map is delirious. So first thing we're going to do is get ourselves a Delirium Orb. I think one of the cheaper ones is the Armorsmith's Delirium Orb, so let's put in Chaos Orb. This will cost us 12 Chaos. Then we're going to need a Legion Scarab, so let's go ahead and take Legion Scarab over here. You just need one for this challenge. Then we need a Legion Scarab of Command. This is going to guarantee that you have a general spawn in your Legion encounter. Next, we want to get a Scarab of Radiant Storms. This makes it so that your map contains a Resplendent Tempest, so let's go ahead and buy this. And then we're going to need a Blight Scarab of Blooming. This is going to make it so Blight encounters have unique bosses in the area. This one's a little bit more expensive, so let's go ahead and buy that. And then the last Scarab we need is a Kelgoran Scarab. This one makes it so you get a ore deposit in your map. So we'll go ahead and buy this one as well. And these are all of the Scarabs and items you need for this challenge. So let's go ahead and take all of them out. Now it's worth noting that this challenge does not have an eye level restriction on where you need to run the content, so in order to make things easy, I recommend using a low tier map. And you do not need to put any modifiers on it. In fact, I'm going to scour this map. I guess we can put a chisel just for fun. And then you want to use your Delirium Orb on this map. That's going to make the area delirious. Then we can put all of these into the map device. But before we click activate, you're going to want to open up your Atlas skill tree. Make sure to get the Prolific Essence node. This will guarantee that you have an essence in your map. And then the other thing we're going to need is you want to have all of the Domination nodes on your tree again. So we will at the very least need Supplication. This makes it so our map contains an additional shrine. I also recommend that you take the Domination Shrine Duration passives that are in this little cluster. So once we have those passive nodes and all of these scarabs, we are ready to open our map. Alright, you're going to want to click the Blight crafting option on your map device. Now that was a lot of stuff to go through at once, so let's go over the summary again. You're going to want to have Prolific Essence, you're going to want to have Shrine Duration, you need to have Supplication to guarantee a shrine, then we want to have the Blight crafting option on our map device, then we have a Delirious map, preferably with a low tier, then we want a Legion Scarab to guarantee a Legion encounter, a Legion Scarab of Command to guarantee a general in the Legion encounter, then we want to have Blight Scarab of Blooming so we we get Blight bosses in our Blight encounter. Then we want to have the Scarab of Radiant Storms to guarantee a Tempest, and then we want to have the Kalgoran Scarab to guarantee an ore deposit. With all of this done, activate your map and let's get inside to do this awesome challenge. Alright, the first thing I recommend you do is full clear the map without doing any of the mechanics that we've added to it. Okay, so do not do Blight, do not do the ore encounter, do not do the essence. You can clear the monsters around the shrine, but do not press the shrine because we need to save that for when we are doing Blight. Alright, with the map fully complete, we can now start doing our cross-contamination challenge. First thing you need to do is find the essence mob. You're going to wait for the Tempest to show up, and then you're going to step in it like I am. Alright, you're going to get a buff here that lasts for 20 seconds, and in that 20 seconds you need to kill the essence mob, and that will complete the defeat a essence monster while affected by a Tempest portion of this challenge. Next, we want to do the Kalgoran while delirious part of the challenge, so complete an ore deposit encounter while delirious. So here we have one of the amber mechanics. We're just going to sit here and defend a tree, and since our map has the delirium orb on it, we count as being delirious. Alright, unfortunately, my game crashed right when I finished the ore deposit, but as long as you finished it while the map is delirious, you should get this portion of the challenge complete. Now we need to go look for the Legion encounter. So here it is. I recommend putting your portal near here just in case you crash like I did. We're going to open the Timeless Monolith, and we're going to look for an arrow pointing towards the general. So in both directions, we get a general. We're going to go there and kill it. And then if you have time, you're going to go in the other direction and kill it as well. There is a little bit of a bug. One of the bosses that spawns can be invulnerable in a Delirious map. I don't know what that's about. But here is one of the generals. And then here is the other one. And for doing this, you should defeat a Legion General while delirious. Now there's only one thing left to do, and this is the harder one in my opinion. We need to find Cassia, who is doing the Blight mechanic. Alright, so here she is. We're going to open the Ichor Pump. Try and remember where your Domination Shrines were. And then we're going to put a couple of ice towers to slow down the enemies. That way we have more time to run around. You can also use the stone towers to do the same. So let's just put down some of these ice and stone towers, and then you can start the encounter. Alright, about halfway through, we're going to want to go grab a shrine and then kill the boss that spawns. And you don't want to crash here, so definitely put down a portal. That way we don't have to run all the way back from Narnia. Alright, so I think now is a good time for me to go get the shrine. So I'm going to run here, get one of these shrines. It'll last 80 seconds with all of my Atlas passive skill trees. And in that 80 seconds, a Blight boss should spawn, and we should get the challenge complete. Alright, here's the first Blight boss. It spawned with still 40 seconds left on the shrine. So that should have been the challenge complete. We'll just finish up the Blight encounter, and then we are good to go. And there it is! With one map, you've done your cross-contamination challenge of defeating a Legion General while delirious, defeating an Essence monster while affected by a Tempest, defeating a Blight boss while affected by a Shrine, and completing a Ore Deposit encounter while delirious. The next challenge is super easy. It's Assisted Atlas. Complete a collective 750 tiers of maps while you have an active mercenary. So just have your mercenary hired and active, you know, maybe giving you some buffs and auras and all that. It does say collective, so you don't need to do 750 maps. If you run a tier 16 maps, you will get 16 of the progression marks for this challenge. So get a total of 750 tiers complete, and this part of the challenge is done. The next challenge is Formidable Fights. Now, unfortunately, this one is a little bit more tough to do. The easiest way, it's going to cost you a lot of money, is to go to Faustus. You're going to type in Syndicate Medallion. So this is the new Katarina boss fight token that drops in patch 3.26. You can see here that this is extremely expensive. 4 divines for 1 attempt. So 4 times 4, if you want to buy your way to completing this challenge, it'll cost you 16 divines. Maybe you find a Veiled Orb or a Katarina exclusive item and make your money back, but I wouldn't count on it. The thing that I did was Delve, so let's go into the Azurite Mine. So if I open up my Subterranean chart, I've been doing a lot of Delve. And you're going to look for these Delve boss nodes. Let me see if I can find some over here. This is an Abyss boss node. That counts as one. There should be a Vaal boss node somewhere here as well. Here's the Vaal boss node, and then there should be a Crystal King somewhere here. Or maybe I have to go up. But you get the point. You're going to be delving and looking for these boss biomes, and you're going to be killing a total of 3 of them in eye level 75 or higher. 75 is a pretty generous level for Delve. If you're doing Delve for hunting bosses, you should be doing it around depth level 150, which is I-83. So if you don't like Delve and you'd rather buy this challenge, you can do the Syndicate Mastermind. I cannot recommend doing the Bestiary bosses or the Vaal Omnitect. That just sounds mind-numbingly boring unless you are someone that is farming your own incursions or you're doing a lot of Bestiary and you're finding the bosses yourself. Our next challenge is Elated Exaltation. This requires you to use 7 of the following Exalted Orb currencies in the game. So if you go to Faustus and you type in Exalted Orb, you're going to get a list of all the different Exalted Orbs. The most expensive ones from my memory is the Veiled Exalted Orb and the Hunter's Exalted Orb. So you're going to have to look at each one of these and see which is cheapest, and then use a total of 7 different Exalted Orbs on random pieces of gear. There is a cheaper way to do this, but it requires you to have knowledge and familiarity with the betrayal mechanic. There has been a couple of changes to how betrayal works in 3.26. I don't know what the hell I'm looking at here, but if you want to know a cheap way to do this, you can get some of your syndicate members into the research division of Betrayal, and you want to rank them up to level 3 and then run the safe house. There is a high chance for them to get some of those exalted orbs in the crafting bench. And I have tested it. These items you find in the crafting bench actually do count towards the challenge. So if you want to spend your time instead of your money, you can do the Elated Exaltation challenge using the Betrayal mechanic. Next up, we have Maniacal Magnitudes. This requires you to complete maps with a total of 60,000 item quantity for modifiers and additional sources. With an endgame Alkengo strategy where you have map effect modifiers on your Atlas skill tree, you can expect to have around 100% quantity on your map. So 100 times 600 will get you a total of 60,000 item quantity from running maps. So this one will just take you some time to do, but it's pretty straightforward. Our next challenge is Recollections Realized. This has you running T16.5 maps that were added in patch 3.26. These are called Originator Memory Influenced maps. They have a different aesthetic from the normal map that drops. So you can see here, I have the influenced version on the left, and then I have the normal version on the right. And they look different, and they can roll different mods, and the T16.5 maps are overall more rewarding. You can also do this using the Memory Tear mechanic that was added. Memory Tears are random mechanics you can encounter while doing your maps. Here you can see I have one starting with Jungle Valley, and then it connects through a memory chain, ending with Phantasmagoria. All of these counts toward this challenge, and then the very last map is the Courtyard of Wasting. This one is RNG, it'll be different every time. You could get Courtyard, you could get Chambers, you could get Theater, and each one is going to have you fighting one of the new bosses. Also worth mentioning is that there are Atlas passive skills that influence how often you find these memory tears or what bosses you encounter. They're at the very top of your Atlas. You can get these ones to increase the number of maps that drop with memory influence. You can get these ones to increase the chance of encountering a memory tear in your maps, and then you can get these notables up here to affect the odds of which map and boss you fight at the end of the memory strand. So this is a little bit of an RNG. It took me quite a while to do. The Originator Memory Influenced maps is not that hard. These are, you can buy it off other players, you can farm it yourself, you'll get through 50 of them quite quickly. Right? The challenge was getting 4 out of 4 for each of these maps. Sometimes you will just get bad RNG and you'll get like 7 Theater of Lies in a row, while what you need is the Courtyard or Chambers. So remember to use these passives and you'll get this challenge done. Alright, for challenge number 33, we have Eldritch Expedition. This requires us to do 333 Eldritch Altars and 33 Memory Altars. Now, the best way to do this is to set your Atlas up, so you either have the Searing Exarch Altars modifiers, or if you have the Eater of Worlds Altars modifiers. You're going to go to Egon, you have to find yourself some memory tiers. So here I have a memory tier starting in Jungle Valley and ending in Phantasmagoria. You're going to talk to him, you're going to alch the map, make it all nice and juicy. Alright, and remember that T16.5 maps can roll deadlier modifiers. Alright, I was testing a map earlier and I just died and lost 1 div worth of Omen of Amelioration. So don't be like me, make sure these mods are actually mods you can handle. You're going to want to put in Influencing Scarab of Hordes. This increases the pack size of the Eater or Exarch monsters that spawn. It might work for the Originator packs as well, I'm not sure. And then you're going to want to put in Scarab of Monstrous Lineage. This is going to make it so we have increased magic pack size for monsters in the map. And then if we run this map, we should be getting Eldritch Altars as well as Memory Altars when we finish the map. So let's go do that real quick. Alright, here's our first Eldritch Altar. You can also farm these in your normal T14 and up maps. You don't need to do this in Memory or T16.5 maps. The reason we're doing this together is so we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Alright, while doing these maps, also keep an eye out for the pedal skills. These are activated using your F keys. Each pedal skill will do something different. In this case, it makes monsters have increased item rarity. So while you're doing Eldritch Expedition, you can make sure to use your pedal skills. That'll help you progress towards your other challenge. Now, the other thing I want to bring your attention to are these Memory Strand items that drop. These are magic or rare items that drop with memory strands on them. You want to pick these up and put them in your stash because one of our challenges later is going to have us interacting with the strand mechanic, and you're going to want to have an assortment of these items ready to go. So while we're farming Eldritch Expedition, we're also doing 2 other things just to make sure that those challenges are easier to complete later down the line. Alright, we have now made it to the end of the map. When we kill the map boss, we're going to get the memory altars to spawn. So all in all, you have to do a total of 33 memory strand maps in order to finish this challenge. Alright, there it is, the boss is dead, and here is the memory altar. Alright, 54% chance for equipment items dropped in area to have memory strands, very nice. And then that's going to take us to the next map in the memory strand. Our next challenge is Revered Return. This has us interacting with some of the new currency and mechanics from the T16.5 and new Pinnacle boss encounters. We have to use any of the following orbs. We have Orb of Remembrance, Unraveling, Intention, and while you are inside the T16.5 maps, you also have to use the pedal abilities using your F keys. There's also the option to consume memory strands on equipment. We're going to talk about that after, but first let's go to Faustus and see how much these orbs cost. The Orb of Remembrance is currently going for 561 Chaos. The Orb of Unraveling is currently going for 222 Chaos, so that one is actually quite cheaper to use. And then the Orb of Intention is currently going for 117 Chaos. So you guys are kind of getting the idea here. This is going to be an extremely expensive challenge for you to do. If you are a new or casual player that doesn't have a lot of currency to throw around, I would highly recommend skipping this challenge if you are only going for 36 out of 40. If you are going for 40 out of 40, you have no choice. You have to do this. You're going to pick the cheapest of these orbs. That's going to be the Orb of Intention and the Orb of Unraveling, I believe. You're going to use that on some equipment, and you're going to get these challenges complete. The petals we can consume in T16.5 maps, and then for the consume memory strands on equipment, like I said, if you've been picking these up while doing Eldritch Expedition, you should have a stash tab that looks something like this. Alright, you're going to have a bunch of these memory strand items in your stash tab. All you need to do is you need to take some Orb of Scourings. You need to identify all of these, and then you're going to scour them. So let's go ahead and scour. Alright, and then you are going to alch all of them, and that is going to consume the strands, and that will add completion to this portion of the challenge. Alright, as you guys can see, we are now getting close to the end of the challenge list. Our next challenge is Strenuous Summons. This has you completing a total of 250 modifiers on Invitations. Invitations are run on your map device. If I hover over this Maven button over here, you'll see that we have different invitations like the Formed, Twisted, Forgotten, Hidden, Feared, and the Elder Slayers. In order to complete this challenge, you have to get these bosses witnessed, and then you run it as an invitation with Kirak. All you need to do is Ulk and Scour the invitation until it has 4 or 5 modifiers you can run, and then you run it, and over time it adds up and you get this challenge complete. If you have more money than you do have time, what you can do is find someone who is selling the Eldritch invitations in bulk. For example, the Polaric invitation here is a really simple one for you to run. We can do that on video right now. Alright, so I'm going to Alk it, see if I can handle the mods, and then I'm going to put it in, and then we can go kill this boss super quick. And there it is. The invitation is done. That should have been +4 or +5 to the completion of this challenge. If your build is really strong and can handle more mods, what you can also do is you can corrupt the invitation. You can try to get 8 mods onto it instead of just running it at 5 or 4. This one I got done very quickly because I had a ton of Polaric invitations laying around after doing a bunch of red altars. Our next challenge is Remembrance Repressed. This has us fighting the new Pinnacle boss encounters that were added in patch 3.26. Some of them are going to be the junior bosses that you encounter at the end of your memory tears and memory strands. For example, the Courtyard of Wasting map has a junior Cirrus for you to fight, and for that one, you have to fight him without getting hit by his rotating beams. Alright, the other challenges are going to have you doing the Pinnacle bosses themselves using the invitations, so it should be the Echo of Reverence, Echo of Loneliness, and Echo of Trauma, and some of these are incredibly easy to do. For example, beating the Incarnation of Dread without being hit by the Encircling Fire Nova is simply resolving the mechanic that is going to get you killed if you fail it. So for a lot of these fights, the condition is simply to not die to the mechanic that is most likely to kill you. So I didn't have to go out of my way to do this. I just fought these bosses, and once in a while I'd see the conditional met and the challenge complete. Our next challenge is Pinnacles Paired. This one is also very simple and straightforward. It involves you defeating the normal Pinnacle boss encounters while you have an active mercenary. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my mercenary, you just invite it to your party, and then we can put something in like Maven, and then we can go blast out this kill. Having the mercenary there is going to increase the boss's life. You'll see here that unique monsters have 50% more life with the mercenary in your party. If you have geared your mercenary proper, this should actually be a net positive effect, especially if you're playing something like a Doriani's Merc setup. You're going to be doing more damage with it around than you would otherwise. Alright, and there's phase 1 of Maven. I'll finish phase 2 and 3, and then we'll move on from this challenge. You simply have to do it for every single one of these bosses. There was a bug where the Elder was not registering. You had to do Uber Elder with your mercenary instead. That has been fixed, and it should now work just fine with the normal Pinnacle bosses. And there it is, Orb of Conflict, very nice. So we're just going to do that for each and every one of these bosses, and then you'll have Pinnacles Paired complete. Our next challenge is Endgame Enigmas. This has you running Tier 17 maps. Tier 17 maps are my least favorite content in the game, guys. If you are only going for 36 out of 40 challenges, consider skipping this entirely. Right, what you can do if you want to have this done easily is that you can roll your map to have a set of god-awful prefixes, but a set of suffixes that aren't too bad. Then you're going to put in your T17 map, and then you're going to put in a Scarab of Bisection and a Scarab of Stability. The Scarab of Stability is going to reduce the chance of consuming a portal when you enter the map, and the Scarab of Bisection is going to help us nullify the prefixes that we rolled, which are completely awful for our build. So in this case, I have a bunch of monster life and monster damage, and then the suffixes are manageable for my build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my map device and click Nullify Prefixes. And then we can run this map, and it should be very easy for you to do. In fact, you don't even have to kill the monsters like I'm doing right now. You can just rush to the end of the map, kill the boss, and you'll get a +1 completion to Endgame Enigmas. Once again, guys, if you are only going for the 36 out of 40 challenges complete, this might be one you skip. And there it is. Do that 29 more times and you'll have Endgame Enigmas complete. Alright, our second last challenge is going to be Powerful Pursuits. This has you fighting the Uber Pinnacle bosses in Path of Exile. There are a total of 7 Uber bosses. You only have to kill 4. I'm going to go over which ones I think are the easiest. I guess that may or may not be true depending on your build, but the most popular way to finish this challenge is to go on the Path of Exile website. You're going to go to the forum section and then you're going to click Communities. There, people are going to have a bunch of boss killing services listed. You're going to have the entrance ticket for the boss. In this case, that is your fragments. Let's see, we have some fragments over here. All right, you're going to bring in your fragments, you're going to bring in your payment, and then you follow their instructions and they will kill the boss for you. I've never really done a carry myself. These are bosses that I killed myself. You can see here I have been unable to kill the Uber Maven. I just do not have the skills to do that fight on a melee build. If I had a ranged build, I could probably get it done, but I managed to kill all of the other Ubers. I think that the Eater of Worlds, Uber Cortex, Uber Shaper, and the Searing Exarch maybe is going to be the easiest fights to do. Uber Seers is a complete pain in the ass, and Uber Elder can get a little bit tricky. There is a lot going on in that fight, and you might just get unlucky and some of the safe spots become floors lava, and then you end up dying, whereas something like Uber Shaper you can actually outplay if you are familiar with the fight. I think Searing Exarch is probably another one of those super annoying ones, but it is doable. You just have to log out during the ball phase and you should be good to go. But none of this would actually be any fun if we didn't do any of the bosses on video ourselves, so here's me doing my third attempt on Uber Maven.
Stand still. Take this. The prettiest piece makes the whole. Stand still. The prettiest piece makes the whole complete.
Guys, I don't know what is going on. I keep getting hit by the beams, it puts a degen on me, and then I die. And it doesn't feel very good. If you have any tips on how I can better do this fight and not get hit by that stupid Tri-Claw beam mechanic, let me know. But otherwise, this looks like another rip bozo attempt.
Cascade of pain. The prettiest piece makes the whole.
No! Okay, so that was my best attempt yet. We got to phase 3. We died a bunch and had a couple of ball misplacings. But yeah, you can see how Uber Maven feels to play on a melee build, especially if you're not a fantastic player like myself. So maybe we'll try again later when we have more money. Those fragments cost a lot. Kill 4 of these that you think are the easiest, or buy yourself a service and call it a day. If you're only going for the 36 out of 40 armor challenge, then skip this challenge entirely. And last but not least, we have Grinding Gear Goals. This has you doing some of the most grueling grinds that are available in Path of Exile 1. You have to complete 4 of any of these missions. Reach level 100 can be tough for a lot of us. Defeat Uber Pinnacle bosses is also something that can be tough for us, so I'm going to recommend that you do the other 4 that is on this list. Using the Divine font in the Endgame Labyrinth is pretty easy enough. Offering to Goddess is the Uber Lab, that's the simplest one. It's going to give you 2 of those Divine font uses per 1 run. If you have a lot of currency to spend and want to save some time, you can instead run Gift to the Goddess. This is the Enriched Labyrinth. This will cost you at least a Divine for each run, but you will get a total of 8 or 9 uses of the Divine font at the end of the lab, so you can get this part of the challenge complete that much quicker. Complete Shaper, Elder Conqueror, or Memory Guardian maps with at least item quantity 80. This one's pretty straightforward. It has us running the Shaper, Elder, and Elder Slayer maps with item quantity. Make sure to chisel your maps, and then you can put some modifiers on it, and with a little bit of map effect, you should be able to do 50 of these maps, no problem. If you want to make money running this part of the challenge, you can Maven Witness those bosses, and then you can run the invitations. That is going to make you a ton of money from the Maven Chisels, the Frag fragments and Maven Writs, as well as any awakened gems you might find, or if you're very lucky, you'll get an influenced exalted orb to drop, which you can then sell for a profit. The next objective here is to complete a collective tiers of tier 14 or higher maps. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It just has you running a lot of endgame maps. And then lastly, you can pair this with the objective to run those maps with the mercenaries. Complete 100 tier 14 or higher maps with a mercenary in your party, and that should give you the grinding gear goals. And that brings us to the end of this video, guys. Once again, if you are going for the 36 out of 40 challenges instead of the full completion, I recommend skipping grinding gear goals. I recommend skipping powerful pursuits. I recommend skipping one of the more expensive grinds like Revered Return. This one just costs a lot in terms of currency. And if you're someone who doesn't plan on running hundreds and hundreds of maps, you can skip out on Maniacal Magnitudes. That is going to save you a little bit of time if you just want to bang out these challenges and get it out of the way, instead of grinding it for weeks on end like I did. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, even if it's only for one or two of the challenges instead of all 40. This video took quite some time to put together, so if you want to show some love, show some support, and see videos like this for future leagues, make sure to like, subscribe, share it with your friends. You know what to do. But with that said, I have a new build I want to work on. I have some new currency farming strats I want to do. I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!